Well, today's topic is an experiment in which the guinea pig is me. Because the fact is that my back has been out for a couple of weeks and I'm going in on Wednesday for more steroid injections. It's an old and typical affliction. But I haven't been out on the boat in a month and I'm starting to feel less like me. So I thought I would give it a try, even though really I'm not at my best. It's difficult to bend over. My gait is weird. And in short, I'm 82. The question is it okay to do what I used to do at this age? What's the rational determination of when you can go sailing and when you can't, or when to stop anything that you used to do after you're, as we say, all grown up. So let us turn now to the mirror in the lives of those of us eligible for Social Security, or over 50 or 60 or 80, or whatever age it is by which the shadow of the mast upon the water has lengthened sufficient to make a late afternoon sundial. Bill Hatfield of Australia, who set the record for non-stop navigation at age 81. Jean Socrates, oldest woman to sail solo non-stop around the world, and she was 77.
Pretty determined, and I don't give up easily.
John Sanders, 11 circumnavigations, and when he finished the last one, he was 81 years old. They're superhumans, which ain't us. But my personal favorite is Hori Konichi, who just a few years ago sailed a 19-footer from San Francisco to Japan at the age of 83. That's a year older than I am.
San Francisco, Japan again.
I like him because he said he was absolutely miserable most of the time. I don't know what the average age of sailboat owners is, but Google AI thinks it does. It says the median age is 60, and that more 70-year-olds own boats than 40-year-olds. It says the average sailboat over 24 feet is now 34 years old. It says the recreational market is older. It says new buyers are scarce, and that owners who bought a sailboat 25 years ago still own a sailboat, and of course they're 25 years older. That's bad news for your local yacht broker. For super yachts, not so much. The average super yacht buyer used to be 58 years old, and today he's closer to 45. These guys struck it rich fast and just wrote the check. And also the check for the paid captain and the full-time crew. Ready about, sir? Or does Madame wish to complete her massage first? Personally, I can't think of anything worse than to be a median anything. And if the median is 60, I missed it by 22 years. Still, there is strength in numbers. And I keep track of whether my number is coming up. Well, that's interesting. I left one dock line on when I was backing out, and when we were proceeding out the channel, realized I had forgotten to turn on the switches for the autopilot and the other electronic gear. I've done that before. You know, this is, as much as anything, a test of confidence. It's only been a month since I've been on the boat, maybe 6 weeks. But I noticed that in the marvelous tally-ho videos, the skipper, after 6 weeks or 2 months in Ensenada refitting, as he took tally-ho out to the Pacific Ocean, said into the camera, "I wonder if I can still do this," or something to that effect. Yes, of course, confidence has a lot to do with the lot of the older sailor. And pretty much all of us have the usual aches and pains and wholesale body repairs and remodels that come from a youth spent trying to break ourselves. Rotator cuff, anyone? I can see the nodding. Damn the physical therapy after that. Bad back, knee replacement, titanium hip, perhaps. 80% of residents in the United States experience back pain in their lives. About a quarter of adults have low back complaints at any time. And almost 10% of us have enough pain to qualify as disabled, for which age, obesity, and sedentary lifestyles are probably the major risk factors. So says artificial intelligence. Allow me to remind artificial intelligence that all of us sailors hurt plenty when we were young and groaned and creaked about it even while throwing our jock straps into the washing machine. We were hurting as much at age 30 as we often are today, no matter how old we are. The consciousness of our body and its complaints isn't new to the age of old. It's been with us always. I remember back in the 70s, the Washington Post each year played the New York Times in touch football. I was about 30. I thought this was a marvelous innovation because it was both men and women, and the women were, I felt, attractive. So I showed up as much as possible, went out for a pass or two, and couldn't walk for 3 days. Well, it's been 50 years, and I can't remember not being able to walk for 3 days anytime recently. But of course, health is partly a state of mind. Myself, why, I can see hardly any difference in flexibility of body parts then as compared to now. I always said that the great thing about sailing was that you could do it sitting down. And it's true, although a pram does get smaller and smaller. And yet the youngest little boat brings the oldest sailor back to his roots, when we were acorns, not trees, and reminds us that youth is always only a memory. Youth is always the past, whether you're 20 or 90. It's the present that makes the new memories. Yes, the boom on a laser is very low, and I had forgotten that. You have to bend over. It hurts. Sure, sailing can be done sitting down. I was right about that. I now do it more than ever. I think I've given off pushing things to the limit, but I don't want to give off pushing them. Today's a good example of that. This morning I thought, well, why don't you wait a couple of weeks until you're feeling stronger and such? But the wise decision was to come out here today and just bob around with the dolphins for a while to remind me who I am. Maybe for some people it's golf. It used to be tennis for me. But the number of things that we can't do when we get old is smaller than the number of the things that we still can do. It doesn't mean that we have to give up all of the physical activities. We'll do what parts of them we can. And I have found that there's pleasure in that, and even self-justification. That we can still do stuff, even if it's not all the stuff. And it may well be that our ability to choose what we do is better than it ever was before. That we've seen a life go by. I don't wish to sound like the voice from the tomb. But the fact is that in the 10 years of this channel, we've all grown up together. 10 more years. And in fact, the channel appeals mostly to people over 50. I think we have in common a question. how like am I now than to when I was 20 or 30 or 40? It's a mental game. It really isn't a physical game. Every single life, it seems to me, by observation, goes through periods of pain, periods of surgery, periods of rehabilitation, marriages, children growing up. But we oughtn't to be surprised by radical change. And this from a guy whose house just burned down. What remains is the same old fellow as before. And I'd like to think equally capable of not answering telephones when they ring, even offshore on boats. The way we live our life should include ignoring telephones and ignoring silly questions and ignoring, when necessary, the evening news, so that we can participate in seeing the universe as it appears to us and only to us, and then share it with other people as we're doing right now. To look at your life and say, I can do that, maybe a little more moderately than before. I can still derive pleasure from being alive, even in a flat calm, although this isn't really a flat calm. That in sum, the experiment of going out and trying stuff, even though you know you're not at 90%, is really a valuable one. It goes for work and play and love too, I suppose. And in this respect, how different are we from any NFL player? Travis Kelce, for his $20 or $30 million, has to play hurt every weekend. And lately he's been dropping the ball. So we drop the ball occasionally. We're still who we were, or we hope to be. And there's no other way to figure out what that is than to do the stuff that you were put on earth to do. Or so it seems to me. Old sailors have long memories, and maybe that's the best sailing we still do. I am asked at age 82 when the next solo voyage to Hawaii might be. I tell them it's scheduled for the year 2021. And then I'll go again in 2018. And then if I feel like it, I'll go in 2014 and on an even smaller boat, and for the first time. Memory isn't just the past for us, it's the present and the future too. The past is wasted on the young. They have so little to remember. They're only alive so far. Their horizon is ahead. We're there. Or we were. Because the truth is, I don't go out in 30 knots alone intentionally anymore. But I do remember it. It is true that I have been thinking about such things lately, because that's what happens when you write an autobiography and recount the extraordinary stuff and the embarrassing stuff and the sheer volume of the memory of being alive in wind and water and the sea of other people. I tell you that anybody with a sailboat in his past, present, or future has everything in common. We've been there together. We're going places together. And we're still here together. We are not always becalmed, but in the calm, it's a great time to take stock of things. What are our remaining capabilities, those of us over 50 or 60, who see a Social Security check in the mailbox and wonder how much has changed? I think it's up to us to determine how much has changed, and oftentimes it's less than other people assume. It's true that imagination can defeat realism. For a long time, I used to daydream about being a fighter pilot in the Battle of Britain. Not the only one who did that, I am sure. How would I do against a German ace? Well, the question was quickly resolved when I played a video game with a 13-year-old who shot me out of the sky in the first 22 seconds. And thereafter, I found impossible to deal with. He was just young and agile and knew how to do it. Well, hey, those of us who are all grown up have something nobody else has. We know how to do it. And with luck, we can keep doing it. Luck and the awareness that things may have changed a little bit, but not entirely. And that even if your back hurts, you may find that giving it a try minimizes the notion that you're not who you used to be. I think my father was right. It's always a good idea to stick your nose out into the weather and see what the weather really is. We are capable of underestimating our powers.
Use it or lose it. I'm pretty determined and I don't give up easily. I won't say no. If I can make something happen, I'll make it happen.